Stories to draw and color. The giraffe. The giraffe is a quadrupedal mammalian animal. That is, it grows inside its mouth before birth and has 4 legs that support its body. These legs are very long. The front legs are even longer than the hind legs. A particular feature of this beautiful animal is its long neck, which allows it to have a wide view of its surroundings and reach the highest leaves of the trees. Also, it has 2 small horns on its head. The giraffe can be as tall as a 2-story house, which could be approximately 6 meters tall. Another particular characteristic of giraffes is their brown spots, which can be dark or light brown. The tone of the spot can help to know if the giraffe is young or not. The darker the spots, the older the individual. The spots on its neck and legs are smaller than those on the rest of its body. This beautiful animal is herbivorous, which means that it only eats plants. The rest of the fur is yellow. The coloration of giraffes allows them to camouflage themselves, that is, to be confused and go unnoticed by their predators, which are other animals such as lions, leopards, hyenas, and wild dogs that feed on other animals. Giraffes live in the savanna, which is a type of ecosystem made up of large expanses of land called plains, where there are no mountains. In the savanna, the sunsets are beautiful. The sun shines with a mixture of yellow, orange, and red colors. The plains are covered with grasslands and herbs, in which there may also be trees, although they are scattered. That is why most herbivorous animals have adapted to eating a certain level of vegetation. The giraffes, with their great height, eat the leaves of the trees called acacias, leaving the other animals the leaves and less tall plants. The tongue of giraffes is thick and long and can measure 50 centimeters. His lips are strong. Their saliva is thick and sticky that grabs and encapsulates the thorns of the plants that they could eat so that they do not cause damage to any internal organ. In the home of the giraffes, called savanna, when the sun begins to hide, the sky turns orange and red. It is a wonderful landscape. This beautiful animal is in serious danger of disappearing due to the degradation and fragmentation of its environment, climate change, and poaching. That is why it is important to respect nature, make sustainable use and exploitation of natural resources.
The toucan.
The toucan is a popular bird recognized for its big, that is larger than normal. It measures approximately 19 centimeters long. This beak is very useful for feeding. Toucans use it to reach fruits that are on small branches that cannot support their weight. The toucan can measure between 18 to 63 centimeters long and weigh from 130 to 680 grams. The toco toucan, or large toucan, is the largest member known of the toucan family. This beautiful bird lives mainly in tropical forests. Its name comes from the Guarani Tupi, Tuca, Tucana, which is a language from the area of Brazil. The toucan eats a variety of foods, including fruits and insects, and sometimes small reptiles and even the eggs and chicks of other birds. The colors of the toucan's beak are very striking. Depending on the species, colors such as blue, yellow, red, and green predominate. On its beak, the toucan has small teeth that act like a saw. This peculiarity allows them to be omnivorous, that is, to eat both animals and plants. Their eyes are surrounded by a skin that on certain occasions is of very bright colors, sight being the most developed sense of the toucan. The plumage of the toucan is soft and colorful and may vary according to the species in question. It presents yellow colors with reddish, orange, and even purple touches, all of them depending on the particular species. Its legs are short and strong that allow the toucan to move easily between the branches. Females are generally smaller and their color is less intense. These birds regularly stay in the treetops. Its wings are small and round. The tail is long with rounded ends. In the toucan's nest, we can find between 2 to 4 eggs, which the parents keep warm with their bodies. That is, they incubate them for 16 to 21 days, depending on the species. At birth, the small birds are fed by their parents for more than 40 days. At 2 months of age, baby toucans can already look for their own food. The toucan is native to America and lives in southern Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean region, and the northern part of South America. Toucans normally prefer low-altitude tropical rainforests, although they are also species adapted to temperate forests. They like to be in places with many trees, where they can build their nest, which they generally locate in cavities or holes in the trees. Some scientific studies suggest that the toucan's beak also acts to regulate its temperature. The surface temperature of the beak was observed to change rapidly depending on the outside temperature. In the humid forest, that is the habitat of the toucans, the temperature is warm, always above 18 degrees Celsius, and with little variation, so the plants almost always retain their foliage. This ecosystem features exuberant plant communities. The top of the trees can exceed 40 meters in height, which would be equivalent to a 12-story building or more. In the jungle, there are trees adapted to rainy and warm climates. These help the toucan to camouflage itself, that is, to go unnoticed by its predators, which are jaguars and other species of big cats. Toucans, being such beautiful birds with striking colors, are also attractive as pets, which is why many of them are hunted and captured. However, like almost any bird, they require space and freedom to move, with a variety of plants and animals to feed. Taking them out of their home causes an imbalance in nature. It is always better and more beautiful to be able to admire animals in their natural habitat and conditions. Alison's Magical Garden. Alison lived in an apartment in the city. The apartment was on the second floor of a very colorful building. Alison liked to dream of having a garden with many trees and flowers, where she could run and play. When suddenly, Alison realized that she was in a garden. Yes, a garden, but magical, because everything was made up of geometric figures. The day was sunny. The sun was very high in the sky. It was a big yellow circle, surrounded by small and playful triangles. Some triangles were yellow, and others were orange. The triangles tickled the circle, making it shine even more. In this garden, there were many trees. One of them was a large pine tree with a trunk shaped like a brown rectangle. Its front was made up of 3 equilateral triangles, one on top of the other. Because you have to know that an equilateral triangle has 3 equal sides. But let's continue creating Alison's magical garden. Besides the pine tree, there was an apple tree, formed by a large green circle full of small red circles, which were the apples. All this supported by a brown rectangle that was the trunk of this beautiful fruit tree. In this garden, there were also trees of very curious shapes. Some of them had a thin trunk which branched off in different directions. At the end of the branches were circles, some of them green, some purple, and some pink. These colors were because they were full of flowers. At one end of the garden, there was a tree with the foliage like a semicircle. In it, you could see a small nest, which was supported by the branches of this curious tree. There were also trees shaped like an isosceles triangle. Yes, exactly, like a Christmas tree, with two equal sides and one different. Alison had heard that Christmas trees are also called conifers. But there are also oval-shaped conifers. And in Alison's garden, there was a conifer like this. The foliage was very long, and the base of the trunk could hardly be seen. In this magical garden, colors also abounded. So, there were many flowers made up of small circles of all colors. You could see them here and there. At the base of the trees and flowers were small plants made up of tiny triangles of various shades of green. In the distance, you could see the horizon formed by soft curvilinear lines. And beyond the horizon, there was a big snowy mountain. Alison thought it would be a great adventure to climb to the top of that beautiful mountain and play with the snow and, of course, make a big snowman. The sky was covered by clouds that moved slowly and gently by the wind. The sky had a beautiful blue tone. In this garden, there were also butterflies, formed by ovals and circles of all colors, with their little antennae. They flew here and there. Everything was beautiful. The aroma of the trees, plants, and flowers was delicious. Alison heaved a heavy sigh, and suddenly she was lying on her bed. Everything was a dream, a very sweet and beautiful dream. And from that day on, Alison goes to bed early to dream of her magical garden and to run and play. And so, this story for drawing and coloring comes to an end. The house and the tree. Once upon a time, there was a yellow circle who lived very happily. One day, a brown rectangle came to keep him company. The yellow circle and the brown rectangle had a lot of fun. Until one spring day, a black rectangle arrived, which was the little brother of the brown rectangle. They were a fantastic trio. The days passed until one summer afternoon, the cousins of the rectangle family showed up. Two beautiful blue squares, as blue as the ocean. The two squares were identical, as they were twin brothers. All these geometric figures had a lot of fun. One very hot morning, a huge orange square arrived and took a large part of the rectangle family in. This huge square was as orange as a juicy mandarin. Suddenly, and without warning, one beautiful afternoon, it started to rain little yellow circles. All of them were very playful. You could see them here and there. The rain was accompanied by small, thin green rectangles that did not leave the small yellow circles alone. It was the rainy season, so one afternoon it began to rain small yellow triangles that with the wind were suspended surrounding the large yellow circle. One fall, a beautiful red triangle set on the big orange square. Apparently, he wanted to protect it from the rain. The triangle was as red as a tomato. And it started to rain again, but this time little circles of all colors. All of them very mischievous, that set around all the little yellow circles. And I think this story is taking more shape, right? Oh, but I think the brown rectangle feels a bit lonely. Wait, here's a big green oval coming up. Oh, wow! This great family of geometric figures formed all together and in harmony a large tree, small very colorful flowers, a large very cozy house illuminated by a beautiful very bright sun. And so this story for drawing and coloring comes to an end. The Adventures of Princess Alina. The Birth of a Princess. A long, long time ago, in a kingdom far, far away, lived a king and a queen whose dearest wish was to have a baby. And that was how the king gave the queen a little seed with all his love, that the queen received with all her heart. The time passed, and a baby grew inside the queen. The king and the queen were very happy about this news, so they shared the news with the entire kingdom. The inhabitants of the kingdom were also very happy about it. The doctors of the kingdom told the queen and the king that the baby could be a girl. 9 wonderful months passed before the little baby was born and able to see the light of the sun. Because you have to know that 9 months is the time it takes for a baby to grow inside mom. It was the time it took for you to be inside mom, to grow and to be ready to meet mom, dad, your grandpa, your grandma, your uncles, and everything in this world. And so, on a beautiful spring afternoon, the little princess was born. The king and the queen decided to call her Alina. And here begins the adventures of little Princess Alina. The Adventures of Princess Alina. The Island. Princess Alina was born on an island on a beautiful spring afternoon, surrounded by palm trees and a beach, covered by a sky full of soft and delicate colors. But have you wondered what an island is? An island is a place surrounded by water, in which palm trees and fantastic animals abound. The soil is made up of sand and shells of all shapes and colors. An ideal place for a princess to be born, right? But let's continue with our story. The day the Princess Alina was born, she was placed on a fresh bed made up of fine and delicate sand. The bed was specially made by crabs and sea snails. The sand had the ability to make the princess always have sweet and happy dreams. So, when she slept, she always had a beautiful and angelic smile. All the inhabitants and animals of the kingdom went to know the little princess. The green iguanas, using their magical powers, came walking very fast, dragging their long and beautiful tails. The orange iguanas climbed to the top of the trees that surrounded the place where the princess was. From there, they could watch her placid and candid sleep. Also, they could sunbathe and absorb all the wonderful energy of the great star. The pairs of parrots flew throughout the kingdom, informing with their songs that the princess had already been born, and that she was the most beautiful baby they had ever seen. Time passed, and the little princess grew healthy and strong. She liked to watch the birds from her window and listen to her beautiful songs. Alina began to take her first steps, feeling the sea water and the sand running through her little feet. She loved going out every afternoon to walk on the beach with the king and the queen. When Princess Alina learned to walk, that's when the adventures really started, as she could go wherever she wanted. So, don't miss the next episode of The Adventures of Princess Alina.
The Adventures of Princess Alina. The Kingdom.
Princess Alina was a very restless and curious girl. She liked to go for a walk every afternoon with the king and the queen and get to know every corner of the island. The island was small, so Princess Alina knew almost all parts of the kingdom. She loved to visit the different beaches there and watch the tide come and go. Princess Alina wondered what was beyond the island, across the sea that separated them from the rest of the world. It was Princess Alina's birthday. So the king and the queen decided that it was a good time for her to get to know the Eastern Kingdom. The Eastern Kingdom was outside the island, across a large lagoon. The king, queen, and Princess Alina packed their suitcases and took a small boat to cross the great lagoon and reach the other side, to dry land. Arriving on land, they still had to travel for several hours along paths surrounded by thick and beautiful vegetation, until they finally reached the long-awaited Eastern Kingdom. The Eastern Kingdom was majestic, and just as Princess Alina had heard, it was immersed in the jungle. The queen explained to the princess that one of the main features of the jungle is having very exuberant plant communities, made up of trees 30 meters high or more, of a wide variety of species, and that preserve their foliage all year round. The princess was very attentive to everything that was around her. The buildings were extraordinary, the vegetation abundant, and the climate humid and very hot. Princess Alina was delighted listening to the singing of the birds that welcomed her and celebrated her arrival. Everything was wonderful. The princess observed very carefully the majesty of the buildings and the tall and leafy trees that surrounded them. The king explained to the princess that the kingdom was currently uninhabited. But many, many years ago, it was a magnificent kingdom in which a very vast civilization lived. For instance, they designed a system for managing rainwater and thus prevent flooding, because the rains are very intense in that area. Princess Alina listened very attentively to everything her father told her. The king continued explaining to the princess the distribution of the place. In the central part, there is a wide square-shaped space surrounded by monumental structures. The main one called the 5-story building, due to the 5 levels visible on its west side. The princess was amazed at the place. Suddenly, she heard a sound coming from her stomach. Oh, she hadn't realized that the time had flown by, and she was already hungry, very hungry. It was time to say goodbye to the Eastern Kingdom. Princess Alina took one last look at the Eastern Kingdom, trying to record every detail in her mind. She didn't know if she would ever see a place as wonderful as this. She said goodbye to the birds, the trees, and the beautiful buildings, hoping to keep such a beautiful experience of hers in her memory. She wondered what adventures the next few days would hold for her. So, don't miss the next episode of The Adventures of Princess Alina.